Hey everybody, I'm Adam, and this is Think Club. Hey everybody, I had a debate today with Tom Jump on the Modern Day Debate channel. We debated objective morality. Tom Jump is also a moral realist. He believes in objective morality, but his moral system is very different from mine. I've accused Tom of basing his moral system on a singular moral foundation. If you know Jonathan Haidt and moral foundations theory, there are 6 moral foundations that they've identified. Tom bases his on the Liberty Oppression Foundation. I pointed this out in our debate and tried to better articulate my understanding of moral psychology and evolutionary psychology as it relates to moral psychology, and where these moral systems come from and how we can better study them and articulate better ones in the future. So it was a very interesting debate. It got heated at times. Tom and I are both relatively friendly with one another, so that kind of stuff doesn't really affect us. It's all in good fun as far as we're concerned. So I hope you enjoy the debate, and let me know, as always, in the comments below what you think, what your ideas are. If you think I am doing better, if you think I'm doing worse, or just your thoughts in general on the moral psychology, the moral systems. Just to let you know, evidently there was a technical snag with the video portion of the debate, and the video was completely out of sync. I don't know how you feel about this. Obviously, I just didn't want to use the video that was so out of sync. So I just used the thumbnail from the debate, and this is just the audio. So if you want to see the out of sync video, you're welcome to go to the Modern Day Debate channel and watch the debate there.
Freedom of speech. The right to freedom of speech is central because it's the right by which you defend all the other rights.
All right. Hey, everybody. Today we have a debate over T-Jump's moral philosophy, and it's on trial right now. So buckle up, everybody, because it's going to be exciting. And remember to send in your questions at any time. Tonight we have T-Jump with us and Adam Friended. And I am moderator Matt filling in today with praise for James. If you're a fan of debates, I wanted to remind you right now to please subscribe. And now, let's get started. We have a 5-minute or so opening from Adam, who's going to be starting, and then we'll give T-Jump equal time to respond. And then we're going to jump into an open discussion for 45 minutes, and then a long 45-minute Q&A. So don't forget, send in those questions. And going first, we have Adam. So I will start time when your presentation begins.
Okay, well, I don't really have much of a presentation. Tom and I have had, I think, 2 debates now where we've debated objective morality. Tom has debated destiny on objective morality. I've debated destiny on objective morality. And I question Tom's understanding of morality, and I question his moral system for objective morality. So I've studied moral psychology. There are a number of different ideas about what morality is. I'm conceptualizing morality as a system of rules that binds individuals into a community. I have Jonathan Haidt's 6 moral foundations in my notes. I also have a system that Elinor Ostrom, who is a Nobel Prize laureate, put together about core design principles for what you might call a moral system that governs common pool resource management. There are 8 design principles there. So I just wanted to talk to Tom a bit about objective morality and his moral, you might call it a moral philosophy, I'm not exactly sure, moral system, and examine that a little closer. So maybe I'll turn it over to Tom, and Tom can give his take on objective morality and his moral system.
All right.
Okay. So my view of objective morality is, well, morality is a system of ethics. The branch of ethics that determines what values we should have and hold. My system says that we should determine those values based off in comparison to the best of all possible worlds, the best way the world could possibly be, and use that as a standard, like a measuring stick that we can compare our world to. And any decision we make, would it make it push us closer to or further away from the best of all possible worlds? And if it does, we can know whether or not it's moral or immoral. That's essentially it.
So you're saying that any action that a person commits would be moving us closer to the most possible moral world or away from the most possible moral world?
Any action would do something. It could be moral, immoral, or amoral. If it moves us closer to the best of all possible worlds, then it's moral. If it moves us further away, then it's immoral. If it does nothing, it's amoral.
And what would the best of all possible worlds be?
A world where every individual essentially has their own universe and can do whatever they want with it. Or to be more technical, it's a world where there is no involuntary imposition of will. All actions are voluntary.
So it would be a completely individualistic world. You wouldn't be forced to cooperate with any other individual.
No, those are two different statements. So it would be no one would be forced to cooperate. That's true, but it wouldn't be purely individualistic because you could still live in a community. You could still choose to be a slave to someone. You could still choose to live in a world run by a god if you wanted to. Those are all just options. So it wouldn't be individualistic because you could still visit whoever you wanted to, or go to other universes, or spend as much time with family members as you want to. You just wouldn't have to. It's optional.
Do you accept the evolutionary understanding of morality, that morality is a system of rules that binds people into groups?
That is not morality. No, that's just how evolution has instantiated what we feel as moral. But that's not the definition, the philosophical definition of morality.
What is your philosophical definition of morality?
One from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy.
Can you paraphrase
Codes
it?
of conduct put forward by a society or group, such as religion, are accepted by an individual for behavior normatively to refer to a code of conduct that gives specified conditions which would be put forward by all rational persons.
Okay. Well,
Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, the definition of morality, that's the page just wrote.
Right. So basically the standards by which human beings will behave.
Yes.
Well, I mean, if you want to paraphrase it, aside from that, I mean, that's basically what I got from it.
Well, the standards of how we should behave, essentially.
Right. Should behave. Exactly. Should behave for what?
So morality is like, how should we determine which actions are preferable versus not preferable, and what that measurement of preferable is. Those are the two things that make a moral system.
Okay, so we're getting somewhere. What makes those preferable? What are we working towards? What makes
That's
those
different
preferable?
for every moral system? So those are the things that we have to decide that as a part of the moral system.
Okay.
In my moral system, it's choice. I think choice is the most important thing, freedom of choice.
Right. Okay. So that's based on evolutionarily the Liberty Oppression Foundation. So the idea behind moral foundations theory is that there are a lot of different moral intuitions that go into creating a moral system. And you're basically basing your entire moral system on only one moral foundation, only one human intuition. Are you saying that these other intuitions that people have will be phased out in your moral system? Or how do you deal with the other moral? There's two questions I have. How do you deal with the other moral intuitions that people have that are away from the Liberty Oppression Foundation? And also, what is the goal of your moral system? Is it to foster happiness in the individual, or is it to bind people into groups?
No. So there was a lot there. Let's start with what your first one was. How do I address the other models of morality? Can you give me an example of one?
Well, the idea behind moral foundations theory is that morality evolved to bind human beings into groups. And there are different moral systems, but all of those moral systems function to foster cooperation between groups competing for survival and reproduction in the world against other groups and other individuals. They've cataloged 6 moral foundations: care, harm, fairness, cheating, loyalty, betrayal, authority, subversion, sanctity, degradation, and liberty, oppression. And all of these moral foundations are based on entire fields of study. Like the care harm foundation is based on attachment theory by John Bowlby, which has been studied for over 50 years. It's about the attachment between, mammals have mammary glands that attach them to their young. Other animals don't necessarily have any form of attachment. They've There's study in the oxytocin system. There's all this different study that goes into that system. They make stuffed animals that look like babies to activate our care harm foundation, to make us want to possess those things because they're cute. The Fairness Cheating Foundation is based on the study of reciprocal altruism. I'm sure you're familiar with plenty of the psychological studies around that. Loyalty betrayal is based on various psychological studies. I think the famous one is the Robbers Cave experiment, where they take a bunch of boys out into the woods and they make them form tribes and compete against one another. So all of these different moral intuitions that people have and exist in them evolved in us to facilitate the cooperation between individuals into groups. People enjoy doing this. So I don't understand how your moral philosophy takes any of this huge body of scientific data into consideration.
So moral foundation theory is how our moral intuitions develop through evolution. They have nothing to do with philosophical morality at all. They're not related.
Well, they are related in terms of, we can take like a moral philosophy, like we can take any moral philosophy. We can take Christianity and examine certain what would you call them? Certain rules. You would examine certain rules and see how those rules affect each of the moral intuitions. Like if you have if you like, one of the common rules in Christianity is to forgive someone who does something wrong against you. Now you're going to have two moral intuitions in conflict here. You're going to have the Fairness Cheating Foundation, because there's this reciprocal thing, like they've harmed you and you feel you need to harm them back. But there's also the Care Harm Foundation, where you should care for individuals in our community. So those two intuitions come into conflict. And a lot of these rules in moral philosophy or moral, well, I guess it is moral philosophy, but moral philosophy or religion or any of those different moral systems that you may have, over time, it kind of evolves to default to the rule that's going to be best for cohesion with the group over the individual. Like there are two different ways that you can handle if someone harms you. You can do a tit for tat struggle, which can destroy groups, foment group conflict, and eventually destroy a community. Or you can have the forgiveness aspect, which puts those two moral intuitions in conflict, but tends to salvage the group. So I think over time, these moral systems evolve in a way to favor the group over the individual. But there is always a tension between the group and the individual.
Right, but again, how evolution evolved and what's good for the group has nothing to do with the philosophical moral systems. Those are two separate things. Like philosophy isn't concerned with which one is going to promote the best society. That isn't relevant to any philosophical system.
But your morality doesn't even accept the possibility of fostering a good society, because your whole moral system is based on one foundation: the liberty of the individual.
Again, I'm not seeing the point you're trying to make here. So again, philosophical models of morality have nothing to do with evolutionary benefits of groups. They're two different topics. Like the point of Nietzsche's model of morality has nothing to do with benefits of groups. It just says that we should strive towards living to the extremes, experiencing the dangers and stuff. He doesn't care about groups. It has nothing to do with groups. Hedonism has nothing to do with groups. It's just about do what you enjoy, whether it's good or bad. Don't care. Do what you enjoy.
So that's your philosophy.
No, moral systems and philosophy have nothing to do with the evolutionary benefits of groups. Those are two separate categories. The moral foundationism is how the morals that we have intuitions of founded in our brains due to evolution, but they have nothing to do with the philosophical models of morality that philosophers are describing. Those are two separate categories. To answer your second question, my system of morality does try to do that. It says that we can use this model to look at what the best of all possible worlds would be, and then we can reverse engineer to where we are and say, well, what could make us closer to the best of all possible worlds? And if we do that, then the world will be a better place and we'll have more societal success or group success in the way that you're describing it from an evolutionary standpoint. So, for example, not killing animals to eat meat would be one of the things that my model would propose, is that when we have the technological ability to stop killing animals to create food, we should do that. That would be the moral thing to do and move us closer to the best of all possible worlds. And so it has pragmatic implications in our society that would be potentially better for our society and for our group cohesion, and that can be applied. So my system does, even though it's founded on a single measuring stick, it can be used. The measuring stick is broad enough that can be used across all possible worlds to describe what we should be doing as groups to make improved group cohesion. But again, group cohesion isn't the point of philosophical moral systems.
Well, you're mentioning societal success. So, I mean, my question is, anyone can create a moral system. You can create a moral system just by sitting down and listing a bunch of rules. You don't know if that moral system is going to work, or, as you say, drive you towards the best of all possible worlds. I'm saying, and you are a moral realist, I'm a moral realist, we both believe in objective morality, a morality that you can measure. I don't see how you can measure your morality. I don't see, if you're not, like, what criteria are you judging? How do you know your world is the best possible world if you have no objective measurement?
Well, the objective measurement would be people and choice. So we can measure it by saying, like, given an option, say, I could give a person the choice to eat an apple, or I could force them to eat an apple. It's always more moral to give them the choice.
It says you.
So, says pretty much everybody universally across the world, like, forcing someone to do something without their consent is always morally inferior to giving them the option to do so. And if we could do that in all possible situations, then that world would be measurably morally better, because we could measure those instances of giving them the option as opposed to forcing them to do it.
If that leads to nobody, like, I don't, how does that not lead to everybody just being able to murder one another because they feel like it?
Because everything is consensual. So in order to murder someone, they would have to consent to it, or it would be physically impossible to murder them.
What is the goal of your moral system?
To make everything consensual and give everyone choices in all situations. No involuntary imposition of will.
I'm having trouble understanding how your moral system is at remotely functional in the real world. It seems like some hypothetical that could never possibly exist, and therefore, why are we even talking about it?
Again, so you can start, like, let's say that I am 6 feet tall. I'm 6'2", but if I wanted to use a ruler that was 1 billion feet long, I could still measure I'm 6'2". The extra stuff there isn't really necessary. It doesn't stop me from being able to measure that I'm 6'2". So my model is kind of like that. I can have a idealistic model that applies to a really big case, like the best of all possible worlds. And then we can apply it to smaller cases, like the world we're in, to get more pragmatic implications. Like, don't kill animals if you don't have to. Don't kill people, because that's an imposition of will. Don't harm others. Don't steal, because those are involuntary impositions of will. Don't do those things. So it applies in the smaller cases of our pragmatic world, as well as the grandiose idealistic cases. Just like if I wanted to use a ruler to measure I'm 6'2", it doesn't matter how much bigger the ruler is than I am. As long as it's at least 6'2", it can still measure my height. Does that make sense?
No, not at all, because you're not measuring height. You're measuring, what are you measuring when you measure morality?
Involuntary imposition of will.
Right. So you're measuring it at the individual level. You're basically measuring morality by how it affects you personally.
Each individual.
Each individual, yes, individually. That's what I said. Yeah.
Well, not me personally. Each individual, everyone.
Right.
Equally.
So do you agree that morality, society, and morality have something to do with one another?
No.
Okay.
So again, I covered this in the beginning. Moral foundation theory is how we got the intuitions we have that has nothing to do with morality and philosophy. Those are two separate things.
Right.
So moral models have nothing to do with society. They have nothing to do with social cohesion.
What is the purpose of moral philosophy then?
To create rules to systems, rule systems.
To create rules to systems. What are the purpose of those systems?
There's different goals for different systems. Like there's hedonism is just to maximize happiness.
Right.
Nietzsche's system was to maximize risk and danger. They have different systems. They don't have anything to do with society or cohesion.
So these aren't really moral systems, and they are strategies for acting in the world individually, not as a group.
No, that's what a moral system is strategies for interacting in the world, some individually and some as a group. I mean, I think you're confusing evolutionary morality and how we got morality with what morality is in the field of philosophy. Those are two separate categories. So morality in the field of philosophy has nothing to do with evolution, has nothing to do with group cohesion.
I understand that. I'm trying to understand how you can call it objective if it has nothing to do with anything in the objective world.
No, again, that's a different topic also. So morality in the field of philosophy can be subjective or objective. None of those necessarily have anything to do with evolution. It's just totally irrelevant.
How is it objective if it has nothing to do with the objective world? It's like math. You're going to tell me.
What's the definition of objective? Math is objective. What's the definition of objective?
Independent of human minds.
Pretty much. So yeah, we can say if there is a truth independent of human minds, it's objective. So we can say if there is this moral system, and it can be like a platonic object, for example, it's true independent of human minds, therefore it's objective, regardless of evolution. It has nothing to do with evolution. Like platonic objects have no interaction with the world. They just exist.
How is it in minds if its purpose is to maximize human liberty, human individual liberty, not group liberty?
I'm not.
How is that objective?
So again, platonic objects can exist independent of our mind, therefore they're objective. So you can have, right? Does that make sense?
No, it sounds like philosophical garbage to me.
So to be objective, it just has to be true, independent of what we think, independent of our minds, right? That's what objective means.
Yeah. I understand the objective world. There's a hydrogen atom has a certain number of electrons. I believe it's 1. That's an objective fact.
Okay.
How much liberty you have in your life seems completely subjective. My moral system, when I'm out there arguing that morality is objective, I'm arguing that it's objective because we can measure certain things. Like we can measure group size. If morality evolved to bind people into groups, and certain moral systems generate certain numbers of voluntary adherents, you could make the argument that the larger the number of voluntary adherents, the better that moral system is.
Well, I mean, we could prove that false pretty simply, but that's a different debate.
How could you prove that false? It's an objective measure.
Because the fact that people choose to believe it doesn't prove it's better in any meaningful respect. There's lots of other criteria.
If the criteria is how well it binds people into a group size is objective.
Right, and I can say if the criteria is choice, then the fact that it has more choice is objective.
No, I'm not saying the criteria is choice. I'm saying that's your criteria.
No, remember, so you said if I grant your criteria, which you think we should use, then your system is objective. So I can just say the same thing.
My system is objective because moral systems evolve to bind people into cooperative groups. The better they are at the better they are at doing that, that's their telos, then you could say the better the moral system is.
Okay, let me put it to you this way. Let's say the best moral system is the one that produces the most bananas. There are more bananas under this moral system, therefore this moral system is objective.
Moral systems didn't evolve to produce bananas.
Doesn't matter. That's not the criteria I picked. It's still objective.
Mm-hmm.
So I can arbitrarily pick any criteria I want, tie it to a physical thing, and then make it objectively measurable.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the real world. I don't see how your example has anything to do with the real world.
Bananas are in the real world. You can count bananas.
Yeah, but there's no moral system out there creating bananas, okay? Unless you want to say the banana factory is a moral system. They do have an ethos. They do form a group. Okay,
No,
there we go. I would say yes. The banana factory has a moral system that is outcompeting you and I on you, or outcompeting YouTube in the moral system of producing bananas, because the banana factory actually has the objective of producing bananas, and YouTube has the objective of producing content. Okay, they're competing on completely different criteria, but moral systems are competing on exactly the same criteria.
No, that's false.
They are organizing society into groups that compete against other groups. Nations are groups. Nations have a moral system. That moral system is based on laws and ethics.
You're presupposing your definition of morality as it having to do with groups, which no one essentially accepts. That has nothing to do with morality.
That's not true. That's not remotely true. You can't even study morality until you accept that morality evolved to do something. How are you saying nobody? Maybe nobody in the philosophy department is saying that.
Again, you're confusing evolutionary.
We're talking about science over here, Tom.
You're
not navel gazing. Okay.
Again, you're confusing the evolutionary development of our moral intuitions with what morality is ontologically. Those are not the same thing.
Epistemology. What is morality ontologically?
That's the debate in philosophy. So that's unknown.
So they're still debating this, are they?
Yes.
Well, they figured it out in the psychology department. You should step over.
No. That's subjective morality. Everything in the psychology department, everything in the evolutionary field is under the subject. Yes.
Really?
All of that qualifies.
Everything in the evolutionary field is subjective, right?
Subjective morality. It's objectively measurable. Subjective.
I thought you were saying everything was subjective.
No. The morality that, as described through what is produced.
It depends upon the measurement. If you want to, I don't know how you could say it's subjective that there are X number of Muslims in the world and there are X numbers of Christians. Are you saying that those are subjective? That's subjective?
No, there's objective measurable facts, but the definition of morality provided by evolution is a subjective definition.
No, it's not.
Yes, it's subjective to evolution. Subject to.
Are you saying evolution is subjective now?
No, evolution is an objective fact.
Okay, how does evolution work?
Selection through natural mutation.
Right.
Random mutation, natural selection.
Right. There is an ethic right now that's governing your body, that's making your cells work together. When that ethic breaks down, you get something called cancer. Okay?
That's not an ethic. That's literally not what the word ethic means. No.
Oh, what does the word ethic mean?
It's the same as morality. It's a system of values that we act on.
It's a system of behavior, is it not?
No, a system of values.
Values for what?
Values for whatever you decide to make the values of.
Values, like the same way values are governing your body, right? Food
values
is valuable.
Don't body.
Waste is not valuable.
Values don't govern your body.
Okay. It's a simple analogy. Human beings have values, right? What are those values?
Yes. They're subjective to lots of different human beings.
Is it subjective that people like food?
Yes, actually, there are some that don't.
I don't know. I think maybe we could go to Q&A. We're not really getting any headway here.
No, I think I understand what you're saying. I just think you're confusing evolutionary morality with philosophical morality.
I'm not confusing anything here. It sounds like you're confused.
Pretty sure you are. Like, I'm pretty sure you are.
Is your body governed by certain chemical reactions that take place, like recursive chemical actions? Your body doesn't have any values? Your body doesn't value certain things and not value other things to survive or survival and reproduction?
No, it doesn't value anything.
It doesn't?
It interacts with those things. It doesn't value them. Values
doesn't
are
value them? Okay, I got you.
All right, guys. Do you really wanted to jump into Q&A?
Yeah, this is going nowhere. So I think I've made my argument clear. I think Tom's argument is incomprehensible.
I have no idea what his argument is. He's just saying, okay, so confusing.
The chat knows what my argument is. My argument is very simple.
I have no idea what his argument is. He's just confusing the epistemology.
Morality binds people into groups. Those groups have different moral systems. Those systems, either facilitate larger group cohesion. Those groups compete against other groups in the world. Like, one of the reasons why the United States is so awesome is because we have one of the best moral systems. It produces the most product, produces the most freedom, the most safety. It produces all of these things that we value. According to Tom's moral system, yeah, you can't even have values. Like, they're all subjective.
No, I didn't say that at all. I said our bodies don't have values.
Oh, yeah. Our bodies don't have values. I forgot. Never mind,
cells
guys.
don't have beliefs. They don't have thoughts. They don't have values. No.
Yeah.
Physical things don't have values. You have to be conscious to have values. But your system
you have to be conscious to have values. Interesting.
Your system is obviously wrong, because if you conquer the world and then wait a generation, whatever system conquers the world will
Are ants conscious? Do ants have values? I don't know.
Maybe.
I guess not.
But cells don't. So cells don't have values.
They don't value certain things and not value other things, huh?
No. You can Google the definition of value.
When that little sperm cell is like chasing up the vajayjay, why is it doing that if it doesn't have values?
Physical determination.
Why are all those sperm cells competing for the egg if they don't value that egg?
Value, definition, a person's principles or standards of behavior. One's judgments about what is important in life. Cells do not have judgments. They do not have.
Oh, they don't. Yeah, you're right. No, cells don't have any judgments at all. Hilarious.
The chat loves this, guys. They're going off.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll jump into some Q&A, but before we actually hit in this closing, would you guys like to do a closing, uninterrupted for each person? That way somebody can go first. You can either, talk to the audience. You can state if you have a current Facebook or Twitter account, something that people can reach you with, or if you even like to debate on a particular topic, you can challenge the audience, something like that. Go right ahead.
Well, just to be clear on my objective morality, like I am saying that we are studying morality from an evolutionary perspective now, that morality evolved to bind human beings into cooperative groups. When you join a moral system like Christianity, you are saying, I am going to live my life this way because I think it's going to foster a community that helps me at the individual level and helps my community as well. So when you look at morality from that evolutionary perspective, you realize that these moral systems, they have separate rules, but over time, the ones with the better rules are going to create wider and wider communities, bigger and larger communities. So we can measure those communities by their success in the world, by how prosperous they are, and simply by group size. That's an objective measurement. So we are actually measuring the morality itself. Now, something similar happens like this in corporations. Like, corporations often function by a corporate ethic or ethos. That ethos is what binds the human beings into a cooperative group that will either succeed or fail against other corporations. A lot of times corporations fail because their ethic is not sustainable. So I'm saying that if you conceptualize morality this way, and this is the way people are studying it, then you can determine whether or not certain ethics are going to be sustainable over time. Now, I'm not sure how Tom's view of morality interfaces with any of this actual scientific study that's going on in the real world. So that is my question. It seems to me he's basically building an ethic off of one moral foundation, the Liberty Oppression Foundation. And this actually evolved kind of late in the human species. From the study of it, it evolved once we evolved the ability to make and use tools. People could bind together to depose domineering alphas. They don't like people bossing them around, telling them what to do. So this moral ethic that Tom has built his moral philosophy on, I don't necessarily know how this is going to bind people into groups to compete. He doesn't seem to care about that. It doesn't seem to figure into the way he thinks about morality, but I don't necessarily know how we can learn anything from his moral system that is based on Platonic forms. So that's my argument.
Okay, so I don't think Adam understands what morality is. Like philosophers aren't sitting around trying to write down ethical systems that'll create the biggest groups. That's not the point. No one tries to do that. It's not like, well, we'll know what the goal here is. We're going to try and make groups bigger. That's the key. Like, no one is trying to do that. That's not what morality is. That's how we came to our understanding of morality through intuition. That's how it evolved in us through evolution. But that's not the goal of evolution. It's not the goal of morality. It's not what philosophers do. They don't sit around thinking about how to make groups bigger. That's
But your morality has a goal.
Yes, well, all moralities have a goal. They all do. But the goal isn't make groups bigger. So again, the point, philosophers don't sit around trying to write systems that will make groups bigger. There's lots of ways to do that. You can just, like, there's one philosophical problem where if a healthy guy walks into a hospital and there's 5 sick people, you kill the healthy guy, take his organs, and fix the 5 sick people, then you have a bigger group. Aha, problem solved. Well, no, philosophers say that's wrong. We shouldn't do that because the group thing isn't what matters. It's not about making most people happy like utilitarianism, which does actually do that. It does actually try to do what Adam's saying, trying to make bigger groups. But they say there's other things that we should value more than big groups, regardless of whether or not big groups is evolutionary, has an advantage or not. It's irrelevant.
How are those objective, though? All of those are subjective.
That's a completely different topic here. So some of those are subjective.
You are an objective you're a moral realist. You believe in objective morality. How is your morality objective?
One step at a time. So first thing, morality, as described in philosophy, has nothing to do with group size. There are a few that do that, like utilitarianism. It's not about group size. It's not what the point of morality is.
Do you understand?
Some of those are objective. Some of those are objective. Some of those are subjective. The ways to describe what is objective and subjective are different for different ones. Like Platonic objects are objective because they're still independent of the mind, even though they have nothing to do with the measurable reality.
But you cannot describe a Platonic object. You cannot describe morality as a Platonic object unless you use subjective measurements. That's exactly what you're doing.
No. It's synthetic a priori is a thing that Kant did, where you can describe morality as existing as like a Platonic object. Philosophers do this all the time. You take that up with them. Don't take that up with me. I don't want to try and defend that. So I'm not, and my model has nothing to do with Platonic objects. That was just an example. You can have things that are objective without being measurable. That was the point. I don't actually support the Platonic object model.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have, there are lots of different ways to make things objective, including them being measurable, independent of the mind, like scientifically, or them being like Platonic objects just existing out there, regardless of whether or not we can measure them. There are lots of different ways things can be objective. The way I go is by making a comparison to a perfect abstract object like a triangle. So I think the perfect world is an abstract object, like a perfect triangle is an abstract object. And it's objective that a perfect triangle, you add up the angles, they all add up to 180. And again,
describe your perfect morality to me.
A world where there is no involuntary imposition of will.
How is that not a subjective goal that you just plucked out of the air?
Because it objectively applies to everyone equally. It's not just me.
You're forcing your will on other people. That doesn't necessarily, that means it's still subjective. I can say vanilla ice cream is the best ice cream in the world and everyone else is forced to believe it because I say so. That's the same exact thing that you're doing. You're saying
the whole point of the choice is that they can choose to do whatever they want.
Yes, correct. But how does that end up in a perfect world? What does the perfect world look like?
Like
that ends up in anarchy.
Whatever they want with it.
That ends up in anarchy. That creates a society called anarchy.
No, again, it's physically impossible to hurt anyone without their consent. So there's no anarchy there. You can't anarchy anything because everything has to be consensual.
Then you are forcing rules on people. Then by your own definition, your perfect world cannot exist.
It can. It's logically possible. There's no logical contradiction in it. You can't build it yet.
I think anyway, the only, first of all, and I just want to mention the only reason I brought up the group size thing is because that is the objective measurement. We're talking about objective morality. I want to measure. I want something measurable. I'm unconvinced that you actually have something measurable in your morality that anyone can understand.
we can't measure a perfect triangle because there are no perfect triangles, but it's still objective that a triangle will add up to 180
So
degrees.
you're not basing it on measurement.
So correct. There are
You're
other
not
ways.
basing it on measurement then. You're
Correct.
basing it on some philosophical understanding of beauty, which I don't know how you can say that that's not subjective.
So again, there are other ways to get objective things other than measurement. Like platonic objects are objective, even though we can't measure them. So yes, my definition of objective in the context of objective morality is not based off of scientific measurement.
Right. Which means it's subjective.
No, remember, platonic objects are objective, even though they aren't based off scientific measurement. So scientific measurement is not the only way to be objective.
Well, for the purposes of this discussion, I'd like to keep it to objective scientific discussion. You're a fan of science, are you not?
Yes, but more objective morality has nothing to do with measurement. They're completely different topics. This is why I said you're confusing the epistemology.
My objective morality has everything to do with measurement.
Remember the banana example I used?
And remember my example of how a moral system that forms a banana factory is actually going to produce more bananas than YouTube is going to produce? Yes, right. I do remember. I remember it very well. But the goal of moral systems is not to produce bananas, unless, of course, it's a banana factory. Then it is. Okay. The goal of your moral system is to create a synthetic world where people can become plugged into the matrix. Okay. I don't know that that's a world many people want to live in. So I do remember the Matrix as a dystopia, if I remember correctly. So
again, you're totally not following my argument here. So
well, your argument is incomprehensible. So it's obvious why I'm not following it.
I'm going to try and make it not, because this is really, I'm doing my best here. So
okay, simplify. Hey, let's not talk about Plato. Let's talk about regular things. Okay.
Okay. So like bananas, let's talk about bananas.
Okay. Bananas.
We can pick any measurable thing that is objective scientifically, like the number of bananas, and say, I'm going to make a moral system that is defined morality as whatever system makes the most bananas.
Correct. That's the banana factory. Yes, I understand that example.
So now we have an objective, something totally arbitrary. I just picked this at random.
Right, but there are going to be, like, I would say that moral system that you're developing there would involve something about maybe finding banana trees, maybe planting banana trees, maybe procuring a place in the sun, maybe procuring water and nutrients. Would it not?
Yes, it would.
Values would form around that moral system, wouldn't it? Like banana trees would be very valuable. Peach trees, not so much. Yes. Yeah, no, I understand. Yes, so that's a measurable moral system. How does this relate to your moral system?
True. That makes it just an arbitrary thing we picked. So your system has the same problem.
So are you saying all the things that we're measuring here, like how much water we need, how much sunlight we need, you're saying all those things are subjective?
No, I'm saying your definition of a big group is subjective. That definition is subjective.
Well, I didn't pick it. Evolution picked it. Mother Nature picked it, okay?
No, again, so no one calls that morality. That's just how we develop.
Wait, we established this already. No one in the philosophy department at Yale calls this morality, but the people in the sociology department and the psychology department, they call it morality.
No, they do not. They call it how our intuitions develop. That's called moral. Like, what is it?
Well, that's called moral psychology. Okay.
No. Again, so this is how the moral intuition in our brains developed. So it's not
your moral system. I want people to understand your moral system seems to be just a completely individualistic moral system, that your goal is to form a world around an individual where that individual can do anything they possibly want to do. That's your moral system, right? That's your platonic morality, the best case world that we're all trying to achieve, right?
Do anything they want that doesn't involuntarily impose on someone else.
Right. And you're saying that's objective, right?
Yes.
Okay. But the banana factory is subjective because we just picked bananas, where you're just picking this world where everyone can do whatever they want to do. That somehow is objective. Explain to me how the banana factory is subjective, but the thing that you picked to strive for is objective? Explain that to me.
Yes, that's a good question, because mine can answer the moral questions more consistently. Like if we look at all of the different problems of morality, they're kind of like,
you think, huh? Like what moral questions is yours answering?
All of them. That's the point. So it's like,
All of them, huh?
Are you familiar with moral dilemmas, right? The questions like,
yeah,
the
totally. Yeah.
problem.
My best friend comes to me and tells me, or a friend comes to me who I'm friends with both him and his wife, and he says, I'm cheating on my wife. So I have a moral quandary. Do I tell her? Do I keep it a secret? Which friend do I honor? Do I honor his wife, or do I honor him? That's a moral quandary. How does your moral system answer this quandary? Whatever's best for me?
No, it's up to you. You choose what you do.
Oh, I choose what I want to do. Okay. Interesting.
You choose. Would you want to tell the wife, tell the husband, or not tell either of them?
So I just get to do whatever I want to do in your moral system. I like this moral system. It doesn't lead to a lot of bananas, let's face it, but I like your moral system.
You can do anything you want that doesn't involuntarily impose on others. So you couldn't choose to kill the guy or his wife or force them to do anything they don't consent to. You couldn't do that.
I don't think you've thought this moral system through very much, Tom, because your moral system answers absolutely nothing. No real world answers can come from your moral system.
I've already addressed that like 10 times. I've already given about 10 of them at the beginning. So yes, it does.
Yes.
So again, you're confusing evolutionary morality of the how.
I'm not confusing anything, Tom. Okay.
You are
I'm not. I understand your definition. Yeah, I let you use your philosophical definition. You understand my definition.
None of this comes from me. This is just the basic.
No, I know. Yeah. We got it.
This is the people you're quoting don't say what you're saying, so they don't call that the essence of morality. They're saying
I'm quoting the evolutionists. You're quoting the philosophy department. Okay, I understand that. We heard. You want to read your philosophical thing again? We can just.
No, I'm going to go. Let's go with the
nail it down.
What the evolutionists say is that our moral intuitions evolved
for a reason. Why did they evolve?
Yes, but they're not saying that's what morality is.
Right. You're saying morality.
That's what they're saying.
What are you saying morality is? What are you saying morality is? Morality is a way to act, correct? A way to act in the world.
I want to stick with the evolutionists here, because to try and help you explain where your confusion is. They are not trying to.
I'm not confused, Tom. I'm not confused one bit. You are very confused. Read your definition again of morality. Read your philosopher's definition of morality.
I want to stick with the evolutionists here. I want to stick with
I'm going from memory, and it's been a while. We've been arguing here for a while. But your definition from the philosophical Stanford Encyclopedia was something like a way for people to behave, a way for human beings to behave, to establish social norms. Am I close? Maybe you want to read it again.
Yeah, it's like a system of values to establish.
Yeah, a system of values. Yeah, a system of values, right? The banana factory, they're going to value banana trees, right? The peach factory, they're going to value peach trees, right?
2 minutes.
What are the other moral systems? What is the system of values designed to do? Make individuals happy?
Again, that's subjective.
Foster cooperation? It's subjective.
No.
I get it. It's subjective. Okay.
Moral systems can have lots of different goals in mind. There's not one goal. There's not one central goal. There's lots of different things, and they're all mutually exclusive. There's lots of different models.
I got you. I understand that part too. Yeah.
So
you're saying a moral system can be designed to look for like hedonism. I heard you. Okay. I understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you can pick anything doesn't make it objective.
Do you understand that if you have a moral community that adopts the values of hedonism and that moral community falls apart, then the values of hedonism will no longer exist because the group sustaining those values is no longer in existence.
1 minute.
Which is irrelevant to morality. Morality doesn't care if it sustains the group. That's not the point of morality.
What is the point?
Confusing the evolutionary definition of morality with the philosophical definition. They're two separate things.
Right. So your definition of morality only stops at defining the values. It doesn't define the product of the values. It doesn't have any care about the product of the values then.
Right, because that's an appeal to consequence, which is irrelevant to the definition of morality. Those are two separate things. like it's not true because of the consequences. The consequences do not make things true. Appeal to consequence fallacy. We know that that isn't the case. That's not how truth is defined. Whether or not it has a positive impact is irrelevant to the truth. So the fact that one moral system will create a bigger cohesive group is irrelevant to whether it's true.
Time.
Well, it's
Wrap
relevant.
up.
It is relevant to whether or not if you're measuring by the group size, it is relevant. It's completely relevant.
Right, and if you're measuring by bananas, the banana size is relevant, but it's
It
totally
is.
arbitrary.
Okay, finally. I feel like I feel like you understand. Yes. Banana size is definitely relevant.
My banana's bigger than yours.
All right, guys. Time for some Q&A. We got some super chats to answer first, though. We got one just now for Breaker. For the love of God, stop Adam from interrupting. Crawdaddy29 super chat. Is well-being not good enough or measurable? He didn't say who that was for, so probably both.
Well, actually, it's sort of measurable and sort of not measurable. Well-being is extremely vague, but the way Sam Harris defines it as usually the quality of life is in many ways measurable. Like there's Steven Pinker in his books, The Better Angels of Our Nature, has lots of measurements of quality of life, and if you measure well-being using those, then it is in fact measurable. And it is a plausible, possible definition of morality, but it's not the only one. It's not the goal of all morality.
What well-being is a difficult one, because are you talking about the well-being of the individual, or are you talking about the well-being of the group? And when you're talking about group, you're talking about your nation, your community. If your community falls apart, if your nation falls apart, if your institutions fall apart, and you're living basically in anarchy, I don't know that that's good for the well-being of the individual. So really, morality is about balancing the well-being of the individual versus the well-being of the group. So it is a good metric that they use in moral psychology and social psychology, but a lot of people don't always understand that there is that tension between the individual and the community.
All right. We're going to jump into another super chat. Probably for both of you again. It's not directed at anyone. From Jordan Maraki, does an ends justify the means?
No.
All
Yeah,
right.
I don't think ends justify the means, obviously. And a lot of the moral questions revolve around that. So, but you're deciding on the ends, and this is where I have questions about Tom's moral philosophy, because he's just basically deciding on the ends, and he's not really thinking of any means to get there.
That's true, but I think the question was more like, if we could build a better society with more success, does anything we do to get that justifiable?
I agree. Yeah, that's why this is the tension between the individual and the community.
Well, no. So the question, just to rephrase the question, is it moral or right to do anything if it promotes a greater society or social cohesion?
No, that's the problem with utilitarianism, obviously.
Okay.
All right. For you, TJ, from Mitchell, does your beautifully and incredibly designed chair lack a belief in its creator?
No, it created the universe. It's an uncreated being. It has no creator.
I forgot. We're two atheists on this show, Tom. Like, all of these questions are going to be against both of us.
Another super chat just came in from Breaker again. It says, Adam, stop it. Get some help.
I don't know how to respond. I mean, if you don't understand the system that I've laid out, I mean, a third grader could understand this.
All right. Well, we got one from Travis Lee. I'm going to start going questions I'm going to bob around back and forth between one more for T-Jump, though, because he's got so many more. From Travis Lee, do you consider evolutionary psychology legitimate science, and why or why not?
Yes, I do consider it a legitimate science, but it's not one of the more fleshed out ones. There are still a lot of problems in EvoPsych, but it still makes testable predictions which can be measurable in many cases. So is still a science. It's just not as fleshed out as something like physics.
All right. Roy, Lindsay, ask you, Adam, if bacteria is the most moral because they have the largest group.
The thing is, though, they're not functioning as a group; they're functioning as individuals, and this comes up in morality. There's the question of, like, a group of men will take certain positions in an army working together. Now, when monkeys fight, or when monkeys hunt meat, I think it's chimpanzees. When chimpanzees hunt meat, they are hunting strictly as individuals. So the fastest individual gets the meat, and he really only shares with other individuals because they like beg and plead with him so much. But men, when they fight together, they will organize, take certain roles, take certain positions. It's a much different thing. So really, you're talking about the cooperation, like ants and other eusocial insects cooperate, versus a herd of buffalo on the Serengeti who are just all running as individuals away from the predator. So it's a vastly different thing. Morality actually fosters a kind of cooperation where you can divvy out assignments by whoever's best at doing whatever. So this is how militaries form. Yeah.
All right. Question for Tom then from Stephen Steen. It says, how does Tom define what is best in Best of All Worlds? Best is beholden to subjective opinion. Killing animals for food is morally neutral to some and morally negative to others.
Right, that's the definition where I gave any involuntary imposition of will. So the world without involuntary imposition of will is the best.
Got it. He might have asked that early on before I heard you say that too. Travis Lee, question for Adam. Do you study psychology academically? By the way, great job today. You nailed it.
No, I don't. I mean, I just read everything I can on psychology, and in particular, moral psychology. I'm super interested in morality. Like I had said, I have the notes from Eleanor Ostrom, which is very interesting because she won a Nobel Prize. There are all these basically small groups of people that manage common resources, and they manage it through an ethic. They all have a different ethic. Sometimes temples form, sometimes gods form, but really the ultimate goal of these ethics is to manage this resource without a lot of conflict destroying the groups. And she's laid out these 8 design principles that are necessary to foster group cohesion in any group. Sorry, Tom, having no one tell you what to do is not one of the ethics. So, and I'll go with the Nobel Prize winner over Tom's morality any day.
All right, for Tom then, from Spencer, how do you know that the best of all possible worlds includes an individual having unlimited power? That reality could actually be torturous.
It's based off of how we answer all of the moral dilemmas, like what moral system can answer all of the moral dilemmas most consistently and most in line with the intuitive response. So that's how we indicate what the best of all possible worlds would be. No one in this system is all powerful. Like, again, it's impossible to harm anyone else or do anything without their consent. You can do anything you want with your world, and if that was miserable, you could just limit yourself to make it not miserable. Pretty simple.
Tom, aren't you just forming 7 billion different worlds? Like, how is your world not a matrix where everyone just plugs himself in and doesn't interact with anyone else? Who's making the bananas in this world?
You don't need bananas. If you have that much power over the universe to create a world, you can just snap your fingers and create bananas. You don't need someone out there farming.
Yeah,
like in the Matrix, you don't need someone making all that stuff. You can just snap your fingers and do it.
The robots are making the bananas. I should have known. I should have known that one ahead of time.
Exactly.
I saw the Matrix. I know how the bananas are made.
All right, question for you, Adam. This guy Nathan asked it a couple times, but in different ways, so I'll just read a couple different ways. How does Adam get an ought from an is? And he also said it in a different way in this form. How do you get a moral imperative ought from an empirical observation is?
So the ought is problem, I have spent a lot of time pondering, and I haven't done the like premise conclusion thing yet. But the thing about oughts is when you're looking at morality from an evolutionary paradigm, you don't know how you ought to behave because there are so many variables that you don't know the potential outcome, that you don't know the right course of action because there are a number of courses of action that you could take. You're wanting a certain specific action, which is usually the best action that's going to be the best for your survival and reproductive goals. But once you take that action, then you sustain an outcome that's positive for survival and reproduction, that outcome tends to become a social norm. Those are what our traditions are based on. Like the tradition of monogamy is based on the idea that this is the best system for the individual and for the community, keeping in mind the same things that I talked about before, how sometimes the needs and desires of the individual can come at the cost of the community, or the community's needs can come at the cost of the individual. So if you think of things in evolutionary terms, this does kind of get past the is ought distinction, because you're developing an ought way to behave over time to achieve survival and reproductive goals. I know a lot of religious people don't like the evolutionary paradigm because they feel it interferes with their faith. But I know, like, I'm friends with Michael Jones of Inspiring Philosophy. He's a theistic evolutionist. I think there are a lot of theistic evolutionists out there, and this will help us form better societies, more cohesive societies.
All right, good answer. We got a super chat that came in. I think it's for Tom from Jordan Meraki. It said, would you be justifiable to kill people if you knew it brought your ideal world? If not, why?
No, it would never be justifiable because it would move us away from the ideal world. So any involuntary imposition of will is immoral, and so killing someone would be immoral and move us away from the best of all possible worlds, not towards it. Even if it got everybody else to that world, killing one person would still be immoral and would not be justifiable.
All right. J. Harry, question for TJ again. If a parent makes a child go to the dentist, even if the child doesn't want to go, is that immoral?
Yes. The reason is because in our world, there's pragmatic limitations, so we have to do one immoral thing to prevent a greater immoral thing. So we have to punish children to make sure they don't stick a fork in the light socket or whatever, or touch a flame, because the punishment we give them will be less harsh than the one that they'll get if they touch the flame. So there's justified immoral actions where we do one immoral thing, like forcing the child to go to the dentist to get their teeth removed or whatever, even if they don't like it, to prevent a greater immoral thing imposed by nature. So it is still immoral to force your kid to go to the dentist, but because of the pragmatic limitations we have in our world, it's justified.
All right, good answer. We got a couple questions. They're not directed at anyone, so you can both answer if you like. Tactitious Garden said, does the apple value the ground when it falls from the tree?
That's fair.
Yeah, totally. That's just a physical process, but I guess you could say yes, it does, because matter moves towards matter, but I don't know if you'd make a value claim. Like there's a certain, when I'm making the argument that cells value things, I'm making an argument within an evolutionary context where in order to sustain survival and reproduction, there are certain resources that need to be gathered. Those resources will become valuable. The reason why any resource is valuable, like why gold is valuable, is because gold can be transformed into currency. You can pay people to do things for it. These are valuable things in the survival and reproduction paradigm. So, but the apple falling to the earth is not within the survival and reproduction paradigm. The apple doesn't need the earth to survive.
All right.
The sperm cell that is traveling towards the egg, if the sperm cell does not get in the egg, the sperm cell will not survive. So the sperm cell does need the egg to survive. Very much so.
All right, Tom, did you want to say something?
Nope. I think he's equivocating two different usages of the word value in the same sentence. Like those are not values, even though they may be valuable for life.
What are values if they're not? What do you think of like the value of honesty? What do you think that's based on? What do you think why do you think we should value honesty? Why is honesty as good as gold?
Again, values are things that have to do with conscious beliefs. You have to have
tell me why a society should value honesty as much as gold.
Well, should we value it is a different question. Values themselves require a value. Need to be conscious. Anything that isn't conscious can't have values.
You're not answering the question. I will ask it again. Why should we value? If you don't like honesty, why should we value personal liberty?
Again, there's lots of different ways to answer that, but I'm trying to stick to the question that was asked.
Well, it is the core of your moral system, Tom. Why should we value it?
Well, again, I don't think my system isn't based off of honesty. It's based off of choice.
I switched it from honesty to personal choice. Why is personal choice more valuable than gold?
Because I think it can answer the moral questions better, therefore align to a more consistent model of reality. Like why would we go with general relativity as opposed to Newtonian mechanics? Because it can answer the questions better.
It can answer questions.
It can solve the mathematical problems better. And my model can solve the philosophical problems better.
Is group cohesion an important thing in the world?
No.
Group cohesion is not important. Group
cohesion is useful, like utilitarianism, but it's not good.
Political decay, institutional decay, none of that matters. So you're basically saying living in Sierra Leone, Civil War torn Sierra Leone, is as good as living in America. That's the statement
No, I'm saying there's no inherent value in any of that. It's just subjectively useful in the context of the way the world is. There's no objective value in any of that. It's just subjectively useful. It's like, why is breathing important? Because we have lungs and we need to breathe. If we didn't have lungs, then breathing would have no objective value. Breathing is not like an objective part of the universe. It's like it's not some universal thing for everyone. It's just the fact that we have lungs means we need to breathe. So the fact
but you obviously think personal liberty is valuable. Otherwise, you wouldn't have placed it at the core of your moral system. So you're only saying that it answers moral quandaries better. But how are you not just, post hoc rationalizing the fact that you don't want to tell your friend's wife that he's cheating on him?
Morality has nothing. So again, the reason we believe in general relativity is that when we look at the math, we look at the things around us, we can describe those accurately and solve problems and make predictions using general relativity. That's why we choose general relativity and not Newtonian mechanics. It can solve the problems in the field better than Newtonian mechanics. That's why it's objectively true.
What is Newtonian physics trying to solve for, though?
Like the orbit of Mars around the sun.
Sure, totally.
So, and
it becomes useful. It becomes useful, or as I like to call it, valuable at a certain stage.
So my model, the reason my model is objective is because it can solve the problems in philosophy better than other systems, just like general relativity can solve the problems in physics better than Newtonian mechanics.
But what are the problems in morality? Why? Hold on. What are you solving for?
All the moral dilemmas, all the moral problems in the field of ethics.
Right. So, okay, you have a moral dilemma. What your system tells you how to solve that moral dilemma. For what?
Yes.
What is the objective? What, like, I don't understand. Like, when you solve a problem about a satellite trajectory, there's a tangible reason. You're like, I don't want the satellite to fall out of orbit. I want it to be at a sustained height. So it actually, what is with morality? What are these moral calculations? What are the ultimate goal of these moral calculations?
That's like asking, well, what's the ultimate goal of calculating the distance to Alpha Centauri? Like, there isn't a goal there. We just do it because it's true. We try to assess truth by doing it.
The value is knowing the distance.
Right. Yes, but that has no pragmatic implications to anything.
But so so basically you're saying I can solve this moral quandary and I can just know the answer? That makes absolutely no sense, because there's so many things that we can't know, like about the moral quandary that I set up about whether or not you should tell your friend's wife that he's cheating on him. You like what are the points that you're going to be weighing with that moral quandary? What is the outcome that you want?
Actions there is immoral. So it's amoral to tell him, it's amoral to tell his wife, it's amoral to do nothing. There aren't any moral implications to those actions.
So there's no moral implications at all.
In that situation, no. Like if you say, if I kill my friend, if you kill him, that's immoral. So don't do that. That one, there's a pragmatic use of my morality right there. Do not kill, because that is an involuntary imposition of will.
So honesty could never be a value in your moral system then, because it's an amoral thing. Honesty is an amoral thing according to you,
right? Because it doesn't impose involuntary impositions on will, so it has nothing to do with morality. Like if a Nazi comes to your door and asks you if you're the Jews, if there are Jews there, it is not immoral to lie to him. You can lie to him and say no.
Yeah, but we're talking about just somebody. We're not talking about the Nazi situation. In your system, if you just want to lie to people randomly for yucks, that's not immoral.
Right, because you're not involuntarily imposing on their will. You can do that.
Right. Doesn't it seem like fraud could be moral in your system?
It's justified to punish it because it has pragmatic implications, but in the best of all possible worlds, no.
But honesty is not a value in your moral system.
In the best of all possible worlds, no. But it's pragmatic. It's like saying breathing lungs. If we have lungs, breathing
honesty is optional. I got
objective. It's only optional in the best of all possible worlds, just like breathing is optional in the best of all possible worlds. In this world, we have to breathe.
In your moral system, where honesty is optional, you're saying your moral system delivers better results than say Christianity. Got it.
Absolutely. Without question, easily.
Well, that'll be the next question then from Nathan for Tom. It said, you argue for logical positivism.
No, I don't. Why do people keep saying that? With that?
They said that you argue this against theists, but here you are arguing from a morality not found in science. What gives? Nathan.
I never argue for logical positivism. It has nothing to do with my position at all. Like, no, I don't.
Okay.
Great question. You got him sweating. I see him.
Logical positivism is the position that the only way to know anything is through like scientific verification. It's like logical empiricism is another name for it. And nowhere do I ever claim that. I claim that there are three tiers of knowledge: conceptual, empirical, and metaphysical. And logical positivism claims there's only one, which is empirical. So obviously I'm not arguing for logical positivism. Just Google the definition of the word.
All right. Question for Adam from J.R. Brine. Adam's morality is baseless, is ought, and Tom's is arbitrary and commits the ad populum fallacy, right? Question mark. So no, I don't know who that was. Was not really a question.
Can you ask the question again, or say it again?
Adam's morality is baseless.
My morality is
or ought.
Read the whole question again. I can't hear it.
Well, there's two parts. Well, part of it's for me, part of it's for you. So,
okay, Adam, you want to go first? Adam's
sure.
morality.
My morality is not baseless. My morality is based on moral foundations theory. My morality says that different moral communities will try different ethics, and those ethics will either foster the survival and reproduction of that community and its individuals, or it will not. So the base of it is it's based in evolution. It's based in survival and reproduction. So I'll let Tom take his.
And Tom's is and Tom's is arbitrary and commits the ad populum fallacy, right?
Yeah, that part's true.
No. Adams commits the ad populum fallacy because he's appealing to a bigger group. So mine has nothing to do with.
It doesn't appeal to popularity. It doesn't appeal to popularity. It appeals to survival.
The survival of a bigger group.
It doesn't matter.
So it appeals to the survival of a bigger group. The ad populum fallacy is the
values can be taken because they're popular and lead to the demise of the group. Like I would argue that your moral system is based on popularity that would lead to the demise of the group. So it's not based on popularity, it's based on whether or not the group survives. That has nothing to do with popularity.
Population. So yours is based on population, which is also.
Do you understand what the ad populum fallacy is?
There's actually multiple versions of it. Yes, I do. And one of yours is population. Population is an ad
popularity. Just because something is popular doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Just because a wide number of people believe it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. I'm telling you right now, a wide number of people can adopt an ethic that can lead to the demise of that group. The demise or survival of that group is not based on the popularity of the ethics that they choose. It's based on the utility of the ethics that they choose.
Your morality is based on population, which is an arbitrary criterion. So he's correct in the first part of what he says.
No, you have no idea what the ad populum. Let's move on. He doesn't understand what the ad populum fallacy is.
I do. So next is what he said about mine was that it's based on an ad populum. Like, no, it's in philosophy. The way we assess morality is by using surveys of moral intuitions. And we take a test and say, well, what is your general impression of what we should do in the trolley problem or something? And in that sense, we're appealing to the population of intuitions to try and assess morality, but it's not a claim about what morality is. It's a claim about how we know about it. It's not an appeal to popularity. It's not an ad populum. That's just the epistemic basis for we have for morality. There's a difference between those two.
All right, question I think is for you, Tom. How is the personal choice and the best of all worlds not mutually exclusive? People's choice can only lead to inequality until a personal choice is to give it up.
Only in the pragmatic limitations of the world we live in. That's not true logically. It's just true because there's a limited number of resources in this world. But it's like Adam said, we're in the matrix. You can just print bananas whenever you want or press copy banana, then that no longer applies. There's no choice limitation at that point.
All right, question for Adam from Everyone Needs a Smile. Please ask Adam if Islamic morality superior to Christianity morality, because statistically Islam is growing faster than Christianity.
This is weighing the needs of the society versus the needs of the group. In any harsher environment, the group may not value liberty as much. So I would say, obviously, that the values that Islam possesses are antithetical to the values that we possess in the West. So, but I think it has to do with a different environment, a different environmental need. So once you gain more resources, you can give more liberty. There's kind of a trade-off between security and freedom. And in the West, we're lucky enough that we have a lot of freedom. We have a lot of security that gives us a lot of freedom. But I don't necessarily know, and I'm not an expert on Islam at all. But I think the reason why there is a larger group of why Islamic morality is larger is because there's more harsh. They live in harsher environments. So,
all right, T-Jump. Here's a weird one. How many comfy chairs do you own, and do you move that one around the house for different debates?
Yes, I do. It has a teleportation button. You just type it in, and it just goes to different rooms just automatically. It's very convenient.
All right. Adam, if the matrix being, what is this? No, wait, sorry. Yeah, I guess this is a question. Here we go. They didn't finish.
Just to jump in on the group size thing, because it's come up in two questions, so maybe it's not as clear, because it came up with the bacteria and it came up with Islam. The group size thing, I'm not saying that a better morale, like at any given time, different growing moral systems can be at different stages. So there could be a morality that's actually better, that will grow to dominate the world, that's actually smaller. So there is this kind of flux thing, and different, like Christianity has changed quite radically over the centuries, like Islam has changed quite radically over the centuries. So And when I'm talking about the bacteria are not working together. They're working individually. It's not even really a group thing, but they're competing at the individual level very successfully. So there's a individual level and there's a community level. So
All right. Well, here's your question. It comes from Jonathan. Ask Adam if the Matrix being dystopian is problematic. Aren't the megacities in Judge Dredd just as bad for your most people theory?
I don't think I don't think people understand the most people theory. I'm not familiar with those video games, so
I think it's a movie.
The idea is not. I mean, the idea is that a larger community can cooperate to compete for survival and reproduction. I think, there are more Islamic nations in the world, but I think those are oftentimes, to the consternation of many people, subjugated to the wants and needs of the West, which has a smaller population but a more cohesive working system. So you can have a larger group that functions less efficiently and a smaller group that functions more efficiently. And if you're competing on, resources, obviously you're not competing on people.
All right. Guildmaster Skarma, a question for Adam. Do you believe evolutionary morality is better than Christianity, or do you believe that we should use Christianity for a basis of morality?
I believe we should use Christianity for a basis of morality. I'm actually pro-Christian. I think the Christian ethic gets the psychology right, and I think it weighs the needs of the individual versus the needs of the community very efficiently.
All right, question for T-Jump now from same person, Guildmaster Skarmal. I have a question for T-Jump. If a moral system you have makes you happy but hinders others from their happiness because of you, are you the problem or is the opposing group at fault?
Happiness has nothing to do with morality. It's about choice. So you can choose to be unhappy if you want to, or choose to do something that's within your capacity, like choose to not be religious, and that might make other people unhappy, but that's irrelevant. So my system doesn't have anything to do with happiness, it has to do with choice.
How is choice just not arbitrary, though? I don't understand how that's just not arbitrary.
Same way general relativity isn't arbitrary. It can solve the problems in the field better than the other systems.
But that's just an assertion. You haven't shown any evidence that that's true.
But you haven't asked for any. That's the point of my claim that my model can solve the moral dilemmas better than any other model.
Do you have evidence for that, or are you just making an assertion?
Yes, I have evidence where I can go through all of the moral models and show that my model can answer them better than all the other ones.
Can you give us one example of this moral model?
The trolley problem, where mine says it's immoral to kill the 1 or the 5. Both are immoral, even though it's justified to do one more than the other. Which is explains why the fat man trolley problem, where it's why is it seen as immoral to push the fat guy even if it saves the 5, is because of an involuntary imposition on the fat guy's will, which is why we see that as immoral, as opposed to flipping the switch, because there's no involuntary imposition on anyone at that point. You're flipping the switch.
But you're a moral objectivist. So how do you know that you made the right decision?
Again, same way we do with general relativity. We look at the evidence, the accumulation of things that we can use to assess the field, and then we say, well, which model can accurately solve these things better? And
well, isn't that circular? You're saying it more accurately assesses based on the accuracy of the assessment.
Oh, no. So we take polls of people and say, well, what is your moral intuition on this thing? And then we use
So then that's the ad populum fallacy right there.
Again, that was the point I addressed earlier. That's the epistemology of how we understand morality, of how we know about morality.
People's moral intuitions can be wrong, though.
What you're talking about is the problem of induction. So just like we have in science, there's a limited amount of data set we have to assess scientific data. So that means we're not absolutely certain that general relativity is correct in its answers, but we use the limited data we have to try and project into the future. So we're doing the same thing in morality, where we're saying our intuitions give us some inclination towards morality, and we're going to try and use the moral models to project into the future to try and get to the objective truth, even though it's not absolute, just like science isn't absolute.
But all you are using is moral intuitions.
Because that's all we have. Moral intuition and moral progress are the only basis
don't.
of evidence we have.
That's all we have, right?
Yes.
That's like saying at the banana factory, all we have is our intuitions.
No, all of the stuff in evolutionary morality is based off of our intuitions. That's the whole point, is just explaining our intuitions.
If all you're going to use is your intuitions at the banana factory, I predict there's not going to be many bananas this year.
The number of bananas is not relevant to morality. It's not the point is not to make the most bananas.
Sorry, I was on mute. Hey, okay, so we got another one for T-Jump from Nathan again. What does the best possible world require a moral judgment best before it's made? And what do you say the good is ontologically? What is the different, or what is the reference?
Well, the answer to both of those is the same. What makes it the best and what good ultimately is choice, essentially. No involuntary imposition of will. That's the ontology of what goodness is.
All right. Question for Adam now. How is he not a physical determinalist? Thereby, no one is morally culpable.
Morality is you can choose to buck the moral system just because, like, if you conceive of morality as a set of rules that binds individuals into community to compete, like sports analogies can come into play. Now, just because there are rules in basketball doesn't mean that you can't break the rules. You will get penalties from your other players, and that's exactly how morality works. When you buck whatever moral system you're embedded in, you're likely going to get penalties from other players who are also out there to maximize their well-being and the group's well-being. So it doesn't, by no means does it take away free will. Like you can, and this is another place where the Christian moral system gets it right. I mean, Christianity starts with the basic psychology that we're all flawed human beings, and that in order for us to succeed, we have to succeed by embedding ourselves in these communities, and together we succeed in the world together. That's great. That's good moral psychology right there. So this is one of the reasons why I think Christianity is a very good foundation for starting any moral community.
All right, here's the last question then from Warlord Plinskin. How do any of these models relate to real life problems, such as how the U.S. just gave $4.5 million to al-Nusra?
Again, so my model can address real world problems by making the comparison to say, well, will this action move us closer or further away to the best of all possible worlds? If I kill one person, that moves us further away, so we shouldn't do it. So it can apply to pragmatic cases. I don't know about the U.S. government example. I have no idea who that is, so can't really comment on that.
Well, I think the intuition that is being activated in the questioner is the Fairness Cheating Foundation. I mean, it's activated in me too. I don't know necessarily why we're giving our resources away to these outsiders that may or may not ever reciprocate. So, and I don't know how they bolster our interest in the world. So I agree. Like, why are we doing that? And that's actually how it would relate to moral foundations theory.
All right, well, that pretty much did it with the questions. I will leave you guys a couple minutes each if you wanted to post that, if you guys have a Twitter or Facebook or YouTube channels, and promote yourself, and then I will close it up. Whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tom.
All right, sure. Yeah, I have a YouTube channel where I do debates with professional apologetics professors and philosophers on, is there reason to believe in a God? I've got a few big ones coming up with Hugh Ross, the physicist cosmologist, at the end of November. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/tjump. Check it out.
Yeah, my YouTube channel, I have Adam Friended, which is my personal channel. I do some art stuff on there. I'm working on crowdfunding a graphic novel soon, and I'm going to publish a book of my paintings. I also have a Think Club channel where I do debates and post political stuff. I also do a show every Sunday on with another YouTuber, PSA Sitch. It's on his PSA Sitch Undaily channel if you want to look that up. So you can follow me on Twitter. If you want, Adam, you can just look up Adam Friended. You'll find me.
Well, first of all, if you don't have a purpose, it isn't that your life becomes neutral in a meaningless sense. It's that your life becomes characterized by unbearable suffering. Because the baseline condition of life is something like unbearable suffering.